Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my YouTube channel. It is my pleasure to revise with you the most recent Combined Science Paper 2 that was written by November 2025 candidates. So today in this video, we are going to cover the section A. In section A, candidates are required to answer all the questions. So we are going to cover all the questions from number 1 up to number 6. Number 1A, it is not that clear, but I can see that the question was saying, name n two types of teeth and give n one function for each, right? So we have 4 different types of teeth. So the first one that I'm going to mention is the incisor. So here I'm going to write the incisor. So we are expected to write the function of the incisor. This is for cutting and biting the food. So this is for cutting and biting the food. And then the second one, I'm going to mention about the canines. The role of the canines is for tearing and gripping the food. Tearing and gripping the food. And then we have the premolar and the molars. They perform the same function, which is of grinding and crushing the food. So lastly, we are going to talk about molars and premolars. Their role is for grinding and crushing the food. So it is for grinding and crushing the food. So these are 4 types of teeth that we have. And in this question, candidates were just required to mention n 2 types of teeth. And then let us proceed to B part 1. We are required to explain the importance of chemical digestion. So we have 2 types of digestion. We have the chemical digestion, which involve the use of enzymes. And then we have the mechanical or the physical digestion, which include the teeth. So in this question, we were required to explain the importance of chemical digestion. So chemical digestion is vital because it breaks down large complex food molecules into smaller soluble units that can be absorbed into the bloodstream. So I can summarize by saying chemical digestion is vital because it breaks large complex molecules into smaller ones, which can be absorbed in the bloodstream, So this is why the chemical digestion is very important, right? And then on part 2, name the enzyme that converts starch to maltose in the mouth. So it is known as the salivary amylase. So we need to write salivary amylase. This is the enzyme that is involved in the breaking down of starch to maltose in the mouth. So that was all about number 1. That was in November 2025. We can now scroll down to number 2. So number 2, it was reading, Fig 2.1 shows an organ in the human respiratory system. Identify the organ in Fig 2.1. So this one is known as the alveolus. So we need to write alveolus. This is the structure of the alveolus, right? And then we need to proceed to 2A part 2. In 2A part 2, we are required to state the function of the organ. So the alveoli is the site for gaseous exchange. So we are going to write it is the site for gaseous exchange. So this is the place where gaseous exchange takes place. So we just need to write this is the site for gaseous exchange. And then on part 3, we are now required to describe and explain N1 adaptation of the organ to its function. So it is very important for you to link structure to function. For example, we talk about the thickness, that it is 1 cell thick. Why is it important? This is important because it is going to minimize the diffusion distance. This is to minimize the diffusion distance so that the process of gaseous exchange occur at a faster rate, right? So when we are describing the adaptation of alveoli, we are supposed to link structure to function. For example, here we say it is 1 cell thick. This is to minimize the diffusion distance. We can also talk about the numerals, that they are numerals. This is to provide large surface area for gaseous exchange. They also have moist surface, which allow oxygen and carbon dioxide gases to dissolve. It also have the rich blood supply. The dense network of capillaries surrounds each alveolus, ensuring the constant flow of blood. So some of the adaptation which we can explain here, we talk about the numerals, we talk about moist, we also talk about the rich blood supply. So you should ensure that if you are asked to explain, you explain these points. Don't just write numerous, moist and rich blood supply, but rather you're supposed to link structure to function. And then on part B, describe and explain an effect of tobacco smoke on the organ in Fig 2.1. So the tobacco smoke damage the alveoli, causing the inflammation. It causes the inflammation on alveoli. Inflammation also reducing elasticity. Which leads to emphysema. So this is how we describe. The question was requiring us to describe. So we say tobacco smoke damage the alveoli, causing the inflammation, reducing elasticity and breaking down the thin walls, which lead to diseases like emphysema. So that was all about number 2. That was in November 2025. We can now proceed to number 3. So on number 3, it was a question from chemistry section. The nucleide notation of an element X is 418X. So we are required to state the mass number of element X. So here our answer, we are going to write 40. You need to know that the mass number is the one that is at the top. And then the number of protons, it is going to be 18, because the proton number is the one that is at the bottom. So in our nucleide notation, we are going to have something like this. And this is the mass number. This is the proton number. It is going to be located here. and then here we are going to have the charge, right? So we can proceed to the next part of the question. Draw a dot and cross diagram to show electronic configuration of element X. So the element X, it is having 18 protons, which means that the number of electrons, they are also 18. So for you to come up with a correct cross diagram, you first need to write the electronic configuration. So if it is having 18 electrons, it means that in the first shell, we are supposed to have 2 electrons, 8 in the second shell, and lastly 8 in the last shell. So that if we say 2 plus 8, we get our total number of electrons is 18. So this is how we are going to draw. This is our first shell, right? And then this is the second shell. This is the last shell, right? So we are required to draw a cross diagram. So here we are going to put 2 electrons like this, and then next we are going to put 8 like this. Here we put 2, here we put 2, and then in the last shell we put 2, we put 2 here, we put 2 here, and finally we put 2 here. So by doing this, we have managed to draw a cross diagram to show electronic configuration of element X. And then state the group of periodic table to which the element X belong. So we are going to be guided by this 8. It is having 8 electrons in the last shell, which implies that it is in group 8 of the periodic table, right? Give with a reason N1 chemical property of element X. So element X, it is a noble gas. Noble gases, they are unreactive due to their full valence electron shells. So give with a reason N1 chemical property of element X. So we need to say that it is unreactive. This is the first mark. And then we explain why it is unreactive. This is because of the full valence electron shells. Full valence electron shells. So they are non-flammable. They have low melting and boiling points. They also exist as monoatomic gases. But the question was saying chemical property. So we need to mention how it reacts. That is why we explained that it is unreactive because of the full valence electron shells, right? So we can now proceed to number 4. So on number 4, we are required to list 2 products of complete combustion. So when complete combustion occurs, we are going to have the carbon dioxide and water. These are the products of complete combustion. And then describe 2 ways by which a community can be educated about the dangers of incomplete combustion. So first we can host community workshops. Host community workshops. I'm going to explain this point because the question is saying describe. It is not a matter of just stating. We need to describe. So there is a need of hosting community workshop. This one need to be led by the local fire departments or health officials to explain the risk and signs and also the prevention method of incomplete combustion. And another point which we can explain, we need to create what is known as create public service announcement. So here, if we create public service announcement, we are going to do it either using the local radio, television, and also the social media that focus on danger of carbon monoxide poisoning and also the prevention tips. And also we need to have the trained volunteers who visit home, doing door-to-door campaigns, providing information, and also checking for the potential hazards. So these are the ways of educating people about the dangers of incomplete combustion. So let me mention this one of having door-to-door campaigns. Door-to-door campaign. So let me summarize again. We need to host community workshop. This is led by the local fire departments or health officials to explain the risk and signs and prevention method of incomplete combustion. Create public service announcement for local radio, television, and social media that focus on danger of carbon monoxide poisoning and prevention tips. Having the trained volunteers who visit home, doing door-to-door campaigns, providing the information, and also checking for the potential hazards. So that is all about number 4A, part 1. We can now proceed to 4B. On 4B, we are required to explain how deforestation can lead to global warming. And the question is having 3 marks. So the deforestation, it causes the global warming, number 1, by releases the stored carbon dioxide into atmosphere. So let me explain this point. The deforestation causes the global warming by releasing stored carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and also reducing the number of trees that absorb the carbon dioxide. So trees, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in their trunks, roots, and leaves. So when trees are cut down or bent, this stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere, resulting in carbon dioxide that is going to cause the global warming. And we are saying we are taking away the trees that were supposed to absorb the carbon dioxide, right? So deforestation removes these natural carbon sinks, which means less carbon dioxide is absorbed, and this can lead to its accumulation in the atmosphere. So we also talk about reducing number of trees that absorb the carbon dioxide. So we are saying deforestation causes the global warming by releasing stored carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and also reducing the number of trees that absorb the carbon dioxide. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in their trunks, roots, and leaves. So when trees are cut down, carbon is released back into the atmosphere. The deforestation removes these natural carbon sinks, which means less carbon dioxide is absorbed and can lead to its accumulation in the atmosphere. We are now on number 5. A book is 10 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide, and 2 centimeters thick. and has a mass of 200 grams. So we are required to calculate the density of the book. The question is carrying out 3 marks. So for you to get the 3 marks, first of all, you need to provide the formula. Density is equal to mass over volume, right? So the mass that we are having here, we are having 200 grams. And then the volume, we say length times width times height. So it is 10 times 5 times 2. So we are saying 10 times 5, 50 times 200. 200 divided by 100. We are going to get our answer is 2 grams per cubic centimeter. So this is how you do it in order to get all the 3 marks. You're supposed to provide the formula, the working, and also the correct final answer with the correct units, like this. So that was all about number 5A. We can now proceed to 5B. So on 5B, the Fig 5.1 shows the loaded National Railways of Zimbabwe wagons being pulled by a force of 900 newtons. Name the force that is represented by 150 newtons. So this one is known as the frictional force. We write frictional force so that you get your 1 mark here, right? And then let us proceed to B part 2. State one way the wagons have been designed to reduce force of friction, right? So when we are mentioning here, the wagons, they roll instead of sliding. They roll instead of sliding. And we need to explain why is this going to reduce the friction. So the wagons rolls instead of sliding. They use the wheels which enable rolling to reduce friction compared to dragging a heavy flat object. So rolling friction is much less than sliding friction, right? And then they also reduce the contact area. A wheel has small single point of contact with the ground, unlike a sliding object that is its entire surface in the contact. They also have the smooth round shape of wheels that help to further reduce the friction. And then state the importance of the force named in B part 1 to a moving object. So friction is essential for moving vehicle as it provides the necessary grip for acceleration, braking, and also steering. So we can summarize by saying it provides necessary grip, which is important either for accelerating and also braking for it to stop moving, right? So that was all about number 5. We are now moving on to the last question in the section A. It is reading, Fig 6.1 shows some changes of states. So we are required to name the changes of states represented by letters A, B, and C. So I was surprised that this question was in physics section instead of chemistry section. But anyway, let us answer the question. Name the changes of states represented by letters A, B, and C. So from solid to liquid, it is known as the melting right? And then B, it is change of liquid to gas. This is known as the evaporation. And then lastly, we are having the gas being converted to solid. The gas being converted to solid, this is known as the deposition. So either we write deposition or we write desublimation. Both answers, they are accepted. So if it is the change from solid to gas, it is known as the sublimation. But if it is now gas to solid, it is known as the desublimation, right? We are now required to state one example of substance which undergoes the process C, the process of desublimation. So we talk about the iodine vapor. So here we are going to talk about the iodine vapor. It changes from solid to from gas to solid, right? We have the iodine vapor. We also have the ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride vapor. We can also talk about the water vapor. Because in the water vapor, we can have the gaseous water being converted into a frost, right? So these are some of the examples of substances which goes under the process of C. And then on part 3, state one condition which is required for process C to take place. For deposition to take place, we need to decrease the temperature. So either we decrease the temperature or we increase the pressure. This is going to cause gas to turn directly into the solid. So either we decrease temperature or we increase the pressure. Increase pressure, right? So we are now going to next question. Explain how an increase in temperature increases the rate of dissolving a solid. So an increase in temperature increases the dissolving because higher temperature gives the solvent and solid molecules more kinetic energy. So we need to mention about more kinetic energy. More kinetic energy. So this kinetic energy, it causes them to move faster. More kinetic energy causing the particles to move faster and collide more frequently. So this one, it is going to result in increase in the rate of dissolving a solid. So that was all about the section A of combined science that was written by November 2025 candidates. So this marks the end of our tutorial today on section A of combined science paper 2 that was written by November 2025 candidates. So if you are interested in joining my WhatsApp classes, you can contact me on 0776 824159. I'm going to start the online lessons with 2026 candidates on 1 November. So those who are interested, you can contact me on this number, and I charge $10 per month per subject. I teach mathematics and combined science.